The institutions we built to keep AI safe are quietly being renamed, and the name changes tell you everything about where the power is shifting. Plus, vibe coding disasters are piling up on Reddit. A viral phishing scam impersonates Microsoft's AI board, and the people who actually build AI's training data are suffering psychological harm on a global scale. From a team at the Synthetic Daily, it's Sunday, May 3rd, 2026. Good to have you with us.
We went through 17 posts, articles, and threads across LinkedIn, Substack, and YouTube over the past week to dive deeper into the world of AI ethics and society.
Here's something that happened without much fanfare, and it probably should have gotten a lot more attention. Both the US and UK AI safety institutes, the bodies that were supposed to be the world's watchdogs over advanced AI, got renamed. The UK version is now the AI Security Institute. The US version? It's the Center for AI Standards and Innovation, or CASI. And if you think a name change is just cosmetic, consider what CASI says its job is now. To quote, guard against burdensome and unnecessary regulation of American technologies by foreign governments and ensure US dominance of international AI standards. That's not safety language. That's trade policy language.
The shift matters because these institutes were founded in the wake of genuine concern, from governments, from researchers, from the public, that advanced AI could cause real harm if nobody was minding the store. The UK body originally focused on things like algorithmic bias, freedom of expression in AI applications, and evaluating frontier models for dangerous capabilities. Now observers say the security framing signals a retreat from those ethical concerns toward national defense and geopolitical competition. It's a subtle but enormous pivot.
To be fair, the UK CASI hasn't abandoned the field entirely. It launched something called the Alignment Project, a global fund that in its first round handed out over £27 million to more than 60 research projects focused on AI alignment. That's real money going to real researchers, backed by a coalition that includes OpenAI, Anthropic, and AWS. They've also announced partnerships specifically targeting AI-generated child sexual abuse material. So there's genuine work happening. But the question hanging over all of it is whether the institutional gravity has shifted, whether safety as a concept is being quietly downgraded to a subcategory of security, which itself is really about economic competitiveness. And if that's the case, who exactly is left to ask the harder questions about bias, fairness, and the people AI actually affects? Gary Marcus has been on a tear this week, and the thing that's clearly gotten under his skin is what he's calling the explosion of vibe-coded AI disasters. If you're not familiar with the term, vibe coding is basically the practice of letting an AI coding tool generate your software while you just sort of steer it with natural language prompts and good vibes. It sounds appealing. It is appealing, honestly, until it isn't.
Marcus highlighted a post from developer Ujjval Chutta, pointing out that stories of vibe coding disasters are piling up on Reddit. We're talking about projects where people with limited programming experience asked an AI to build something, the AI cheerfully obliged. And the result was what Marcus would call slop. Code that looks functional on the surface but is structurally unsound, riddled with subtle bugs, or architecturally incoherent in ways that don't become obvious until you try to scale or maintain it. One particularly long, detailed failure report went completely viral, documenting a project that fell apart in exactly the ways you'd predict if you understand what these tools actually do, which is pattern match against training data, not reason about software architecture.
Marcus's point, which he says he flagged in a tweet that got around 2 million views, is that this was totally predictable. AI coding tools are, in his words, genuinely revolutionizing the software industry. He's not dismissing them, but he's drawing a sharp line. These are tools that amplify existing expertise. If you already understand software engineering, they make you faster. If you don't, they make you dangerously confident. And the industry is marketing them to exactly the people who shouldn't be using them unsupervised.
That's a great point. Daniel Jindu picked up a related thread on YouTube with a video called Stop Trusting AI Titles: The Paper versus Production Test, which got nearly 4,000 engagements. His argument is that people are confusing research demonstrations with production-ready capabilities, reading a headline about a Google paper and assuming the technology works at scale in the real world. It's the same underlying problem: the gap between what AI appears to do in a demo and what it actually does when you depend on it.
So let's start with the big story. Okay, this one's kind of darkly funny. Tomer Elias shared a LinkedIn post this week about receiving an amazing offer from Microsoft to join their, quote, super exclusive advisory board for AI security, governance, and enterprise trust. The role? Tell Satya Nadella and the board how to not accidentally destroy humanity with agentic AI. Compensation? $400,000 to $750,000 a year, plus equity that could be worth 9 figures, plus $15,000 appearance fees, all for 5 to 15 days of work annually.
It was, of course, a phishing scam. And Elias played it beautifully. He wrote the whole thing up with deadpan humor, noting that he's seen enough Microsoft executive board emails in his spam folder to recognize the pattern. But Rock Lambros boosted the post, and it resonated because it touches something real. In the current AI gold rush, the line between legitimate opportunity and absurd grift has gotten genuinely blurry.
Think about it. We live in a moment where actual AI advisory roles at major companies do pay extraordinary sums, where governance and safety titles are proliferating faster than anyone can verify them, where the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace is literally releasing content titled, "I Can't Tell If You're Real Anymore," documenting how AI bots are flooding the internet and eroding our ability to distinguish authentic communication from synthetic noise. The phishing scam works precisely because the real landscape of AI compensation and influence has become so inflated that a 7-figure advisory gig doesn't immediately trigger skepticism. That's the tell. When a scam sounds plausible, it means the real market has lost its moorings. Let's shift to something that doesn't get nearly enough airtime. A Brookings Institution report and Oxford's Fairwork project both paint a devastating picture of conditions for the people who actually prepare AI's training data. The annotators, labelers, and content moderators whose work makes large language models possible. Fairwork assessed 15 major digital labor platforms and found that not a single one scored better than bare minimum on fair pay, working conditions, contracts, management practices, or worker representation. Not one.
A 2025 survey by Equidem of 76 workers in Colombia, Ghana, and Kenya documented 60 independent incidents of psychological harm, anxiety, depression, PTSD, substance dependence. These aren't abstract statistics. These are people who spend their days looking at violent, disturbing, or exploitative content so that an AI model can learn what to filter. And here's the part that should really unsettle you. A report from the Alphabet Workers Union found that these conditions aren't confined to the Global South. Poor working conditions are widespread among U.S. data workers too, challenging the comfortable assumption that this is somebody else's problem happening far away.
This connects to a broader argument that researchers like Timnit Gebru and Emily Bender have been making for years, that the AI industry's fixation on hypothetical existential risk from superintelligence distracts from the very real, very present harms happening right now. A new philosophical paper in Springer's Philosophical Studies introduces a framework that distinguishes between decisive existential risk, the Hollywood scenario where an AGI suddenly goes rogue, and accumulative existential risk, where labor displacement, psychological damage, surveillance, and the erosion of economic dignity compound over time into civilization-scale problems. The argument is that we're so busy worrying about the robot apocalypse that we're ignoring the slow-motion crisis already underway. All right, next up, the Take It Down Act, signed into law on May 19, 2025, is the first federal statute in the United States that criminalizes the distribution of non-consensual intimate images, including AI-generated ones. Platforms now have 48 hours to remove such content after receiving a valid notification from a victim. On paper, it's a landmark. In practice, it's a starting point that's already lagging behind the scale of the problem.
The numbers are staggering. A projected 8 million deepfakes will be shared in 2025, up from 500,000 just 2 years earlier. Pornographic material accounts for a huge share of that. And according to UN Women, more than half of deepfake victims in the United States have contemplated suicide. This isn't a niche issue. It's a public health crisis wrapped in a technology problem.
The EU AI Act took a different approach, mandating labeling requirements for deepfakes starting in August 2025. The UK's Online Safety Act has its own provisions. But in most of the world, creating a new deepfake of someone still falls into a legal gray area. Survivors often don't even know whether what happened to them is a crime, let alone whether they can get a prosecutor to care. And the 48-hour takedown window in the U.S. law? In a world where content can go viral in minutes, 48 hours is an eternity. The law criminalizes distribution, but it doesn't really solve the underlying problem. That the tools to create this content are freely available, increasingly easy to use, and getting better every month. We've built the fire hose, but we haven't turned off the water. Moving on, Gary Marcus also weighed in this week on the ongoing Musk versus OpenAI legal battle, and his take is characteristically skeptical of both sides. He doesn't trust Musk, whose company xAI would directly benefit if OpenAI lost. And he doesn't trust OpenAI, which he argues clearly broke its promises about remaining a nonprofit. Marcus points to a 2017 video of Sam Altman saying, and this is a direct quote, "OpenAI is structured as a nonprofit because we don't ever want to be making decisions to benefit shareholders. The only people we want to be accountable to is humanity as a whole."
You know what stood out to me? Marcus's argument is pretty simple. OpenAI capitalized on that nonprofit promise in recruiting, in fundraising, in the reputation it built with Musk's early money, and in the tax-exempt status it enjoyed. Then it converted to a for-profit structure. Whatever the legal merits of Musk's lawsuit, the underlying question matters enormously for the whole industry. Can an AI organization make sweeping public interest promises to gain advantages, then shed those promises when they become inconvenient? If the answer is yes, then every AI lab's public commitments to safety, openness, or the benefit of humanity should be understood as marketing, not as binding obligations. And that reframing has consequences that go well beyond one lawsuit.
All right, let's zoom out and talk about the bigger picture. What are the main themes running through everything we covered today? The first big theme is institutional drift. The organizations designed to govern AI are being reshaped by the same economic and geopolitical forces they were supposed to regulate, creating a feedback loop where oversight becomes promotion.
Next, the expertise gap as systemic risk. As AI tools become more accessible to non-experts, in coding, in content creation, in decision-making, the distance between apparent capability and actual reliability becomes a new category of systemic risk that markets and individuals are poorly equipped to price.
Next, invisible labor, visible models. The AI industry supply chain depends on a global workforce whose exploitation is structurally hidden by the same abstraction layers that make AI products feel seamless and effortless to end users.
And the last one, legal frameworks chasing exponential curves. Deepfake legislation and algorithmic accountability laws represent genuine progress, but their linear, reactive design is fundamentally mismatched against technologies whose adoption and harm scale exponentially. So if you're going to take away a few things from today's episode, here's what I'd remember.
Number 1. When a phishing scam offering $750,000 for an AI advisory role sounds plausible, The real market has a credibility problem.
Number 2. The most dangerous thing about AI coding tools isn't that they write bad code. It's that they write code that looks good enough to fool the person who asked for it.
Number 3. 8 million deepfakes projected this year against a 48-hour takedown law tells you everything about the mismatch between policy speed and technology speed.
And finally, AI's biggest existential risk might not be a superintelligence that turns hostile. It might be the slow, compounding erosion of labor dignity, trust, and institutional accountability that's already happening.
That's the Synthetic Daily for today. All the sources and links are on the website if you want to dig deeper.
Thanks for listening. See you tomorrow.